So, Hannah, I would say that we aren't exactly what you would call morning people.
I'm definitely not.
I essentially try to spend as little time as I can in the morning so I can sleep in as late as physically possible. But for some reason, just with the way we were scheduling, we have happened to do a few early morning recordings that mean that I can't be as funny because I don't feel as like mentally sharp.
Definitely both of us excel in later afternoon to late night recordings.
Yeah.
I know you can't see, but these are the eyes of someone who has just woken up and who is not used to waking up at this time.
Yeah.
I normally am not up for another couple of hours.
Yeah, see, I work a job where I start at 8 a.m., but like, it's rough. I thrive on coffee. My life is just, I have to have coffee. I have an addiction now to caffeine. Not as bad as mom's. Our mom will drink 3 to 4 cups of coffee a day. Our mom is obsessed with coffee, which I love because I love getting good coffee when I go home. But I went home, I had a coffee, and she was like, oh, do you want me to make you like a pour over or like a French press or something? And I was like, sure, okay. Like, I could do 2 cups today. And she's like, oh yeah, this is my 4th cup. I'm like, what? It's like 11 a.m. What do you mean this is your 4th cup of coffee?
She usually wakes up about 6 a.m. to go to work. And by the time she leaves the house at like 7:30, she's already drinking 2 cups of coffee.
Yeah.
And then usually she'll have like another one like either right when she gets to work or like on the way to work.
Yeah.
But yeah, she's so casual about the fact that she's had like 4 cups, which I will say, the past like 3 weeks I've been pretty sleep deprived because of school and work, and I've found myself some days drinking like 3 cups of coffee. I don't know how she does it.
It makes you feel incredibly jittery.
I'm like shaky all day when I drink 3 cups. And then like some days if I don't eat enough food, like my stomach is just burning all day.
Yeah. I drank a lot of coffee on Thursday. I was outside and it was kind of rainy and cold, so I had some coffee. And then I had a 3rd coffee at like 2:30, which was a mistake. I don't drink coffee after around noonish because then I don't sleep. Well, what happened is I did sleep, but I think I had so much acid in my stomach that I woke up at like 1:30 with just like intense stomach pain, like burning pain. And I was just rolling around like, my stomach. I was like, I need Tums. So I think I had heartburn or acid reflux, probably from the amount of coffee and acidity that I consumed.
That's my biggest problem with drinking too much coffee is like the acid just, you know.
That's why I always have coffee with food. It's to kind of neutralize. I don't drink it until I've eaten breakfast.
Yeah, I've tried, but I'm not a big breakfast person, as you know. And so some days I just like will drink a cup of coffee before I even leave for work, and then like on my way to work I'm like, oh no, should have had some food because my stomach is literally burning.
Yeah, see, for me it's that if I don't eat food, then I feel very shaky and like too much energy, like too much going on, like my heart rate's gonna increase until I die, you know, some heart palpitations. But we're here. It's 9:43 in the morning, and we're gonna record.
We're ready.
Ladies and gentlemen, let's get ready to Dumbo! I know we already did this before with the mascots, but it was literally in the Dumbo movie, so it had to be done.
Welcome. This is Research Rank Repeat. This is co-host Hannah.
This is co-host Alyssa.
And we are doing a
new series, kind of.
Yeah, we mentioned at the end of last week's episode that we were doing something a little bit different. Alyssa appropriately is drinking out of her Beauty and the Beast chip mug that I got for her.
It seemed appropriate to, give Disney more money than they already have. But I didn't buy this. Hannah bought it, so...
I also bought it years ago.
Yeah.
Disney has decided to capitalize in every single way they can.
They need as much money as physically possible.
Right. And one of the ways they found to do this is to start recreating all of their original animated films as live-action films.
Except the ones that make sense, because they still will not give us a goddamn Atlantis live-action movie, and that is the movie that most makes sense as a live-action movie. And it blows my mind. Just give us an Atlantis live-action. Treasure Planet? It'd be great. Okay, I think we should just approach the subject that Disney has problems. We don't fully support Disney on a lot of the things that they do or things that they support. I refused to watch the live-action Mulan out of principle because of the issues going on with China at the time. And also I've refused to watch a lot of the live-action movies out of the principle that I don't want to give Disney money. But if we approach this in the sense that we are doing research, then I see it fine to criticize them and to watch them.
We've always approached these topics with the fact that we don't go in with bias, or we try not to go in with bias.
Try not to.
It does happen. But regardless of how we feel about, like, a company or about, like, production or, like, a director, you know, we've had issues with, like, Pixar in the past with, like, directors. We try to just go into it going as, like, we're trying to watch this and just look at the movie, look at, you know what I mean? Yeah, I mean, obviously Disney has issues. I mean, obviously a lot of big corporations have issues.
Yeah.
So, but basically what we're doing.
Right, we should probably explain what we're doing.
We had this idea to rank the live-action Disney movies. We've had it for a while. We've also had the idea to rank Disney animated movies for a while.
Yes, but the category is so vast. Like, there are 50 animated Disney movies, and I think there's probably close to 20 live action at this point.
Yeah, maybe 10 to 15 right now, but with plans of another 4 or 5. So I guess the way we've decided to sort of start Disney animated and work into the live action is to pair up the movies that have an animated and a live action right now, and some have kind of multiple movies. We'll get to those when we have them, but we're just going to start with 2 of the animated movies and 2 of the live actions.
Yeah, so the way we decided to separate these out is to go in order of the animated movie's release. We are starting with the earliest animated movie that has a live action adaptation. And so the 2 movies that we are doing are Dumbo and Cinderella. So what we've done is we've watched both the animated Dumbo and Cinderella, and then watch the live action to compare, to contrast. We are keeping the rankings separate, however. So we are ranking if we thought the animated or the live action was better, but in an actual ranking list, we're just going to rank animated and live action separately. And this is a series that we are going to continue like throughout time, just doing like a block of 2 or 3 movies at a time. And we will collectively add to our lists as we go, like we do with Pixar and like our other movie franchises.
We kind of talked about the ranking, how it should be, and we both agreed that doing the live action animated as one ranking would be too... It probably would end up with a lot of the live action just being at the bottom of the list, quite frankly. And so I think it's just better to do them separately. And it also gives us a way to be able to break up Disney into some smaller chunks, because that would be a massive undertaking.
And we don't want to do that in like one fell swoop. It's too much. We don't have the time. Make it work for us.
Yeah. Make it work, designers.
Make it work, designers. TV's Tim Gunn would say.
So once again, I have had some poor time management.
Mm-hmm.
We decided on this topic maybe 3 weeks ago.
I think so.
So I've had anywhere from like 14 to 21 days to watch 4 movies, which, I was like, oh, I got this. I did not have this. I've been busy, but that was not like a good excuse, because I definitely had time. I could have watched it. Today is Sunday. I got to Thursday and I was like, oh, I have to watch 4 movies. So I watched half of Dumbo, the animated. Mm-hmm. I fell asleep. And then I woke up and watched the other half. I have watched the other 3 out of 4 movies starting since last night at about 10 p.m. I finished the last movie around 5 a.m.
Okay.
Got a good 4 hours of sleep.
All right.
Woke up to record this, and then I have to go to work.
Yeah. You want me to give you my timeline? It's not exactly that, but of a similar vein. So I, too, procrastinated watching these movies because I was like, oh, all good. On Friday, I watched both animated Cinderella and live-action Cinderella. I just did them back-to-back because I figured it'd be better just to compare them, one fell swoop. Mm-hmm. I took a little break between them. Got that done. Yesterday, I was busy, all day. I went thrifting and got breakfast. Would highly recommend... Besides the point, though, that was just my public service announcement about thrifting and, recycling clothing. I then had a break. I watched the animated Dumbo in that gap, and then I went to this game night, and I was like, cool, well, it's starting at 5-ish, so I'll probably be home, in a few hours, and then I can watch live-action Dumbo before I go to bed. What happened is I didn't leave until midnight. So I got home and I'm like, okay, I'm gonna sit down in bed. I'm gonna get ready for bed, take my contacts out, watch Dumbo. I took my contacts out, got in bed, and I just passed out. I passed out, Hannah. I didn't even plug my phone in, didn't charge. I kept waking up in the middle of the night. My neck was turned because I was facing a weird way. I magically, because I wake up early normally, I woke up at 7:40. So I woke up and I watched live action Dumbo right before this. So I finished it maybe, 30 minutes ago. But I got it done. It's watched. I watched all of them. I maybe skipped a little bit here and there just to kind of speed it along. Because it's an hour and 40-minute movie.
You didn't miss much.
It's kind of what the impression that I got was. Yeah, and then so we're here. So we watched all 4. And we'll just go in the order of, we'll do an animated movie and then its live action counterpart, and we'll do the next set after. And then we'll do our ranking last, clearly.
I think we should start with Dumbo since it was the earliest.
I think.
Earlier.
Yes. So, Hannah and I, just so people don't get confused, normally we do a background and the summary for the movies we're doing. However, Hannah has done the background for all of Dumbo. I've done the background for all of Cinderella, but we have split up the summaries. So I've done one of the Dumbo, one of the Cinderella, just so you don't get confused, because it's a little bit of a different system, and we'll probably change that when we do the next set.
Yeah. So Dumbo, the animated movie, was released in 1941. It was rated G, and it had a runtime of an hour and 3 minutes. Had a 7.3 out of 10 on IMDb, a 98% on Rotten Tomatoes, and a 96% on Metacritic. The box office was about 1.3 million, which in 2020 is equivalent to about $28 million. So it was the 4th Disney animated feature film that was released. This film was actually made specifically to make up for the financial losses of both Pinocchio and Fantasia. There was a quote I read about Dumbo, that it was a deliberate pursuit of simplicity and economy for Disney Studios. So at a 64-minute runtime, it is one of Disney's shortest animated features. And it was met with generally favorable reviews from critics. And it's since considered to be among one of the greatest animated films of all time. So in 2017, the film was selected for preservation in the United States National Film Registry by the Library of Congress as being quote, culturally, historically, and aesthetically significant. So the voice actors for Dumbo are actually uncredited for their roles in the film.
As was common at the time.
So Dumbo's based on a children's story that was written by Helen Aberson Mayer and Harold Pearl. I mentioned the runtime being short. It was originally intended to be a short film, and that was changed. I mean, still technically kind of like a shorter film, but it was changed.
Full length.
Right. Yeah. The foreign markets in Europe were impacted a lot due to World War II. And that is kind of the reasoning behind Pinocchio and Fantasia having poor box office numbers. And because of that, Dumbo was intended to be a low-budget feature, but it was designed to bring in revenue for the studios. So they use a lot of watercolor paint to render the backgrounds, and it's one of one of a few Disney features to use that technique. Others being Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs, and also more recently Lilo and Stitch used some watercolor as well. The movie did win an Academy Award for Best Original Score and was nominated for the Academy Award for Best Original Song for Baby Mine. There was also a proposed sequel for Dumbo. It was canceled.
Yeah.
So, it was supposed to go into more of the backstory about Dumbo's father, wherever he may be.
I mean, the stork brought Dumbo.
Yeah.
Mr. Stork.
Mr. Stork. Okay, and now we'll get into some controversy because there's some controversy. So Dumbo has been criticized for some of its handling of race. All of the circus laborers are African American portrayals. There is also a group of crows in the film that were described by many as African American stereotypes.
I don't know if you have this in your notes, but the one head crow, they referred to him as Jim Crow.
Yeah, he was, the lead crow was named Jim Crow. In, I guess, 1950, they renamed him to Dandy Crow to avoid any sort of issues. So, yeah. But there's also sort of been kind of this weird back and forth. Like, there's people who have defended the crows, basically saying that there's very few characters that are sympathetic towards Dumbo, and the crows are sort of these, intelligent, happy, free-spirited characters that are actually, supporting Dumbo and what he's trying to do. So, this movie, when you watch it on Disney Plus, there's a pretty big warning on the screen. At least when I watched it, it was a 10-second or 11-second thing. It basically kind of explains that, let me see, because I did take a screenshot. Contains outdated cultural depictions, that includes negative depictions or mistreatment of people or cultures, that the stereotypes were wrong then and are wrong now, but rather than remove content, we want to acknowledge its harmful impact, learn from it, and spark conversation to create a more inclusive future together.
Yeah, which, I think is the right way to handle that, because if you censor it, then it's you're censoring history, and that's what happened. We shouldn't be censoring things that actually happened and occurred, because then you can't learn from it. The fact that the crows are voiced by white voice artists, and they were written by white writers, so it's there's that controversy with it.
So that is the controversy, and Alyssa has written a summary.
I have. For some reason, Hannah decided this was her favorite movie. Dumbo is the story of a young, bullied, abused elephant. His only friend is a mouse. He's disowned by his own kind for his enormous ears, and in the end, he learns to fly. The plot is kind of non-existent, but to address the elephant in the room, the racism is not.
I, as a child, there was a period of time where Dumbo was my favorite movie.
Yeah, you loved Dumbo.
I was obsessed with it. I have not watched Dumbo fully through in probably 10 plus years, maybe more. I was watching it and I'm like, why was this my favorite movie?
Elephants?
It's depressing.
You like elephants, I guess?
Yeah, but it's depressing.
There's a lot of animal abuse.
God.
Dumbo is boring.
Yeah, it is boring. I will say, one of the pluses, I did really like the animation.
Animation was very nice, especially, the pink elephants, the animator's definitely on acid or some drugs. Very visually appealing.
Yeah. The fact that Dumbo, a baby elephant, gets drunk.
Yeah.
And they go into, a drug trip scene, basically, is amazing. I was like, what is happening?
This movie, it might be hard to watch because it's, there's, controversy over, racist depictions. I mean, to be fair, very, very true to the time period. Rampart? rampant animal abuse in circuses and, captive animals. Like, very, very, very common, very truthful to how things were at the time period. So, like, that's not inaccurate. It's still hard to watch, though. I liked the part where the clowns were like, yeah, let's have him jump from 1,000 feet because elephants are made of rubber. And I was like, what? It's like, what is happening?
Yeah. I mean, I think, to me, the part I enjoyed about the movie was, like, Dumbo and his mom's relationship.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
It's sort of, like, really tragic because he's essentially, like, a baby, gets separated from his mom, who's declared, like, insane, gets locked up in a cage, and he's essentially, like, just made fun of by every single person minus a mouse.
Yeah. And some crows.
Yeah. The ending feels really quick. Like, I was like, I have 2 minutes left and we're not really fully wrapped up. It feels kind of rushed. You kind of said it, there's not really much of a plot.
Yeah. I think the way in which it does work is because of the simplicity. You have a main character who doesn't talk, which generally doesn't happen, especially in, like, Disney movies. Like, your main character is, like, because they make animals anthropomorphic, like, they talk. Bambi, every animal talks in Bambi. You've got this elephant who, like, is not speaking, and, like, this mouse acts as, like, his voice, kind of. And so that was really interesting to me, and something I was like, you don't really see that. Certainly there's, like, Fantasia and, those ones where it's more about the animation and the, like, the storytelling through art, but those aren't really, like, a full plot story.
I think the reason it works is because of, like, Dumbo's facial expression, and, like, you can feel his emotion without him having to say a word. I think that's why it works. But that is interesting. Like, I didn't really think about the fact that pretty much every Disney main character is always the one speaking the most, and then you have a character who's not speaking. But yeah, it's a pretty, I guess, just an okay movie. Like, I felt a little bit of emotion because I was like, there's parts that were pretty sad.
I teared up a little bit with the when him and his mom are hanging out and she's in chains, and that was a little sad.
It leaves a lot to be desired, but I think at the end of the day, it's the simplicity of it is maybe its best quality.
Yeah.
I
mean, the animation's great as it was from that time period.
Right.
Really great stuff.
Do you have any more thoughts before we?
Not really. That's pretty much all I wanted to talk about.
Okay. So we're doing our normal, like, favorite character line scene, if you had any. And then for Disney, we're going to do favorite song, if it applies, which most movies it will apply.
It will apply, yeah.
When we get to the live action, we're going to add in which movie you prefer.
And we're also going to add in, like, your favorite adaptation in the live action. So, but that'll be specific to the live action.
So specifically for animated Dumbo, I liked Dumbo the most.
Me too.
Favorite character. Mm-hmm. Felt the most sympathy and had the most development, I guess.
Right, and like you said, like, his facial expressions are what, like, led his character, and I thought made him, very sympathetic and very easy to want to root for.
Yeah. I did have a favorite line. It was one of the female elephants. Mm-hmm. And she was like, "Out of my way, assassin."
Yes. One of the crows referred to Dumbo, and he was like, he's socially, he's washed up. And I was like, oh my god. Love it.
I think favorite scene, I didn't necessarily have, like, one, but, like, any scene where Dumbo and his mom were interacting.
Yeah.
I love the scenes where he was, like, grabbing her tail.
Yeah, I thought those were cute.
That was really cute. But that was, like, I guess my favorite, scenes. I had favorite scenes.
Scene, I put the trippy pink elephant animated sequence, because just on an animation standpoint, it's very, very almost disturbing in a way, which, like, I don't know, Disney more modernized doesn't really take risks like that anymore. And I thought it was very interesting and, like, worked in the context of this movie. So I put that.
Yeah. I think the best song, I think it's When I See an Elephant Fly by the Crows.
Yeah.
Not sure how I feel that that's my favorite song, but I think it's, like...
I mean, there's no, like, lyrics in there that are inherently racist or anything.
And I think that it's like, because to me a lot of the music from Dumbo is like pretty like slow, pretty like, you know, kind of boring to me, but this song's like a bit more upbeat, and like I just think it sounds the best to me.
Yeah, I picked Baby Mine solely because I really like that scene when she's like rocking Dumbo in her trunk. It made me tear up a little bit. So I picked that one because I thought it, you know, like if I think of Dumbo songs, that one does like come to me. Like I didn't even remember this like stork song or the like train song or the work song, which I'm glad I didn't remember that because I was like listening to it and I was like, don't remember these lyrics. Ooh. Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, you're right. I think you're right. Like the music of Dumbo doesn't necessarily stand out against.
Like when I think of great Disney songs, Dumbo's never gonna come to my mind.
I would agree.
You know.
Yeah.
So, but yeah. So now we're gonna move into the live action Dumbo, which is also my background.
Yes.
So this movie came out in 2019. It was rated PG and was an hour and 52 minutes. Had a 6.3 out of 10 on IMDb, a 46% on Rotten Tomatoes, 51% on Metacritic, and $353 million in the box office. So this movie was directed by Tim Burton, who's known for numerous movies, Beetlejuice,
the Batman with Michael Keaton, which surprised Michael Keaton's in this movie.
Michael Keaton's in the movie.
And Danny DeVito.
And Danny DeVito.
Batman fame.
So it's a live action adaptation and reimagining of the 1941 animated movie Dumbo. Plans for this movie were announced in 2014. Tim Burton was confirmed as the director in 2015. And then filming took place in 2017. So this movie received mixed reviews from critics. It was praised a lot for its ambition, but criticized for lack of emotional depth. The film features sort of a different storyline than the original film. And it was sort of described as, like, they wanted to do something different. And, you know, Tim Burton's, like, very, like, out there, like, very creative. But the one thing they wanted to hold true was the message of believing in yourself and finding something that allows you to become, like, the best version of yourself. And so they tried to keep, like, that central theme in there while going a different route. Also, another thing about this movie is that it doesn't feature any sort of talking animals. It's instead kind of puts the focus onto human characters, which in the animated, the human characters had very little role in the movie. This is kind of like, now that I'm talking about this, I just realized what happened at the Oscars. So a little bit of a casting thing.
Oh, okay.
So in 2017, it was announced that Will Smith was in talks to play the father of the children. Who,
okay, yeah.
I can't even remember the name.
I couldn't tell you. Not even on my radar.
Colin Farrell's character.
Yes, the man who loses his arm in the war.
Yes. So he was originally in talks to be the father. And he ended up passing on that role because of conflicts with his great movie, Bad Boys for Life. And then he ended up being cast as the genie in live-action Aladdin. So other people considered for the role were Bill Hader, Chris Pine, and Casey Affleck.
Okay. That's a collection.
Yeah. Colin Farrell was ultimately cast, and he was a big fan of Tim Burton's work. He said most of the reason why he wanted to join, but also because he wanted to do something that was like more of like a sweet, like fantasy sort of film. And then he brought Danny DeVito and Eva Green.
Yeah, that sounds right.
Eva. Yeah, so they're both frequent collaborators with Tim Burton, as well as obviously Michael Keaton.
Right.
It's interesting, the woman who plays Colette, who's the aerialist.
Yes.
She actually has a really big fear of heights.
Oh, okay.
So they had to bring in like a lot of people to help her train and like get her comfortable with like being up in the air and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. In terms of the filming of this movie, they used like elephant props.
Okay.
To during the filming to kind of give the production team, like, an idea of the size and, like, the shape of the scenes.
Yeah.
Because obviously the animals themselves are, like... CGI'd,
Yeah.
like, it's hard to do live-action animal movies. But, so they used, like, these stand-in props to give them kind of an idea of, like, what the size and scope would be. And Disney ended up spending about $120 to $140 million to market this film worldwide, actually. In terms of, there's a little bit of a box office thing, because it was $353 million worldwide. Mm-hmm. But it was estimated that the film would have had to have grossed more than $500 million worldwide in order to break even.
Oh, okay.
With how much money they put into
Especially
it.
into the marketing, like...
Right.
Yeah.
Basically, it was reported that the movie ultimately did lose money.
Okay.
So, kind of a last thing, in terms of more, like, critical response, like I mentioned, a lot of people, they liked the ambition of the movie, praised Tim Burton's, like, visual and, like, his imagination, his creativity on the movie. But they sort of talked about how, like, the story and the plot was, like, overstretched, and that it kind of, in a way, almost takes away from the original emotional and, like, simplistic of the animated Dumbo movie.
Yeah.
I have the summary.
All right.
Tim Burton and Beetlejuice have teamed up once again in this live-action version of the 1941 Dumbo. It's The Greatest Showman meets Willy Wonka when Michael Keaton comes to the circus to save Frank and the crew. Things are not as they seem when Shocker, the white man with money, ends up being evil. Let's not forget about Dumbo, who with the help of his new friends learns to snort feathers in an attempt to learn to fly.
Okay. I have a lot of thoughts about this movie. A lot of thoughts. I guess the first thing I want to touch on is that, do we think Tim Burton was limited in what he could do in this movie? Because it's Disney.
I think so.
Because I was surprised at how not good the pink elephant homage was. They just kind of made them into bubbles. And I was like, you have Tim Burton? There's a lot you could have done with that scene.
Yeah, I think... I don't know, because I kind of felt the same way.
Yeah.
At times I forgot I was watching a Tim Burton film.
Yeah.
Because there was parts that definitely reminded me of Tim Burton stuff, and then there was parts where I was like, this feels more like Disney had control over this part. I don't know, it's hard with Disney because I don't know how much creative control people get when they come in and do movies with them.
So going off of that, part of the reason why I don't necessarily like live action adaptations, for the most part, there are a few I think that do work really well, but Disney likes to be like meta. They like to like make fun of themselves, but only in ways that they want to be made fun of. So for instance, you've got like the scene where they're like, champagne for Dumbo, and he's like, no booze for the baby. So they're like, let's not make a baby drunk, ha ha ha. And they like correct mistakes of the original, but only in form of animal cruelty. Essentially, what they've done is they have just erased anything wrong in terms of like a racist component. Like the crows, they're gone. They just don't exist. There is no sense of racism at all. This is, again, 1919 in the South. There's a bunch of people of all different races all in the circus, and it's like, wow, we're one big family, no issues here. And it feels kind of disingenuous to have this movie that has issues, and Disney has addressed this. They have a warning at the beginning of Dumbo saying, here's things that are wrong. Instead of addressing them in this movie, they just completely take away everything that was a problem and only address things that they want to. And in this sense, they really push on the animal cruelty and only the animal cruelty. And even then, they give us a date. This movie takes place in 1919. And as I said, animal cruelty in circuses and in general was very common and happened. And I think if you're setting up this time period, you don't need to like sugarcoat and pretend that like at the very end of the movie they're like, we've gone animals don't belong in cages and we're gonna send the captive elephants back to the wild. These elephants have never lived in the wild before. Like, you're sending animals that have lived in captivity to the wild, where in real life they would not survive because they have not been adapted. Like, they can't adapt to that way of life. Like, Dumbo's not going to magically be able to be fine. That's not realistic. I don't have a problem with them adapting the story and changing it in a new way, but it just doesn't feel good. And I didn't like that.
Part of the problem with doing a live action with this movie is that I sort of felt like the beauty of Dumbo, the animated, was that it was about the animals and the humans were relatively insignificant. Whereas this movie, the animals become basically insignificant and the humans have all the plot.
Yeah, Dumbo is not the main character in this movie.
No. And that's sort of a shame to me. If you're gonna name the movie Dumbo, make him the main character.
Yeah.
It's hard because I didn't feel the emotion the same way, because I think because of the live action you couldn't do the expression the way they could do with the animated. And I think they tried to do this, like, bringing these kids who had lost their mother to parallel how Dumbo had lost his mother, was not with his mother. And I understood what they were trying to do with that parallel. I just didn't really think it worked.
Yeah. I
think the plot in the beginning was pretty boring, honestly. The ending doesn't really feel that high stakes because, to be quite frank, the villains are not... they feel like kid movie villains where it's like...
Yeah, because I feel like Michael Keaton's supposed to be like Walt Disney. And it's supposed to be like Barnum Bailey, like P.T., these like circus, like real life people. Because they had like, what was it? Dreamland?
Dreamland,
which is like Frontierland, Tomorrowland. Like, it's kind of like a play on like, oh, the big corporate, like trying to suck up the circus. Yeah, the villains didn't work for me, and the plot didn't really work for me. I also didn't really like... There's this, she isn't on YouTube anymore, but Lindsay Ellis does a lot of, like, critical analysis of, like, movies and media and things, and so she has a video, and I went back and looked at it. It's called Woke Disney, where she addresses some of the things specifically in Dumbo, but other live-action remakes as well, where it's, like, how does Disney approach criticizing themselves? Like, and how do they do that in a way that they think audiences will want it? And a lot of the ways they do that is by, like, making young women, like, woke. There's nothing, I'm in STEM. There's nothing wrong with, wanting to be a scientist and inquisitive and intuitive and stuff, but they make that her character and not have any relevance to the plot. She's like, it's for experiments. I don't want to be in the spotlight. I want to be a scientist. And I'm like, cool, great. But then, like, that doesn't have any relevant to the story. And I'm like, if you're going to, like, push this, like, perception, like, it should have some relevance. And it feels disingenuous, like they're just adding it to add it. So they're like, look at us, we're woke, We like women.
It feels like the scene in Marvel where they have all the women together at the end. Yeah, because, like, the daughter being interested in science, like you said, it literally had there was no impact to that in the plot, minus at the end of the movie having her, like, show a film of Dumbo flying. The problem was a lot of the human characters didn't work for me.
No.
And the animal characters had no significance. So in that sense, I really didn't have many characters that I felt any sort of connection to.
Yeah.
I guess that's pretty much all I really have to say.
Yeah, I was going to say, I just think there's a lot of things that don't work when you put them all together. I think that made me not enjoy the movie very much. It's almost like this should have just been a different story, but not about Dumbo. Like, it probably would have worked. Like you said, it's kind of like a mix of... It's a weird mix of, like, The Greatest Showman and, like...
Willy
Wonka and a bunch of stuff like that. I think that it doesn't necessarily work as an adaptation of Dumbo.
Yeah, I would agree. I think if Tim Burton had made this movie and got to do his own thing and didn't have to follow Dumbo like plot, I think he could have made something better.
Yeah. That's why I one of the upcoming live action movies is Hunchback of Notre Dame, and I am very, very concerned that movie will not be told well because it's Disney. And like that animated movie is pretty dark for the most part, like comparatively to other ones in the time period. Like they could do it really, really well. It could be a really good live action movie, but I also have fears and doubts.
Right.
Yeah.
No, that's fair. I think my favorite character was probably Colette.
Yeah. I liked, just because it's Danny DeVito, I liked Danny DeVito's character. He was, like, you know, interesting and sympathetic, but I also did really like Colette as well. I think it was kind of both of those collectively.
I don't know that I had a favorite line, actually.
I didn't have a favorite line.
I will go with favorite scene. Like, I guess anytime you got to see Dumbo's point of view.
Yeah.
Like, there were these parts in the movie that I actually liked where it showed, like, him looking and him kind of seeing everything. And I thought that was interesting because you didn't see that with the animated. Like, you didn't get to see that point of view, really, that much. And so I kind of liked being able to see that.
Yeah. I liked, a lot of the scenes, like, with Dumbo flying, I thought were pretty well done. Like, I liked the way that they had that, like, him, like, kind of learning to fly, and I thought the score really, complemented those scenes well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Favorite song in this movie, I went with Baby Mine.
I did too.
Yeah. I thought the scene was, like, sweet to see. We'll do adaptation first, best scene adaptation. Okay, so this is what I was kind of going towards. So, one of my favorite parts from the animated was the scenes with Dumbo holding his mom's tail.
Yeah.
And we didn't really get to see that, and I was, like, super disappointed. And then at the end, like, right at the end, there's a part where they go to the new circus, and at the top of, like, the compass direction thing, there's, like, a metal piece of, like, Dumbo holding his mom's tail.
I didn't see that.
I know. Yeah. I, like, missed it, and then I thought I saw it, and I went back, and I was like, oh, that's actually a really cute nod to it, and, like, that was, like, my favorite scene, so I love that I got to see that, even though it wasn't maybe the way I wanted to see it.
Well, I wanted it to be the pink elephants, but it couldn't. So, I liked their recreation of, like, the first, like, fire scene. You know, when the clown's like, there's a fire, Dumbo's gotta put out the fire. I liked the way they changed it. I thought it worked better. And I just was like, yeah, this is pretty much exactly what happened, but in a live action way, in a way that makes sense. And I was like, yeah, you know, I really liked that. You have this, like, scene where he falls into a pit of, like, cream paste through a trampoline that's, like, a paper trampoline. But then they're like, hey, we're going to lift him and he's going to put out the fire with his trunk instead of him being up there already, and then, like, then he, you know, flies to safety. I thought that worked. And, like, that's what I would want to see from these live action, is them converting the source material into something that makes sense in a live action format.
Right.
Yeah.
I think in terms of which movie is better, I have to go with the animated movie.
I do as well.
I think the animated movie is more simplistic, and I think that's what that story needed.
Yeah.
I give the live action movie props for being creative and being imaginative and, like, trying, but I just think that it fell short of what I think the movie was trying to accomplish. And obviously, like, the box office numbers kind of speak for themselves sometimes too. Yeah. So. I
agree. I think although the animated movie does have some issues, I think if you look at it in the lens and when it was created, you know, as you're able to recognize that these are things that happened at that time period and they're wrong, and, you know, they're wrong at the time, they're wrong now. I still think it works better. I think the simplicity, like you said, I think that really shines through. The animation is, you know, gorgeous. I think that the live action adaptation just doesn't work as a Dumbo movie. I think it kind of works as a movie. Like, the plot's all there and it's, you know, it's fine. There's nothing, like, wrong with it. I just don't think it works well. I don't think it just is, it's not super strong. It just kind of is okay. Yeah. All right, let's do Cinderella. Let's do Cinderella. All right, so I've got the background on Cinderella. Disney's version of Cinderella was released in 1950. It has a runtime of an hour and 18 minutes and is rated G. So, the story of Cinderella, this version, is based on the fairy tale by Charles Perrault, which was written in 1697. So this is the most well-known version of the Cinderella story. However, this story actually originates, like, way, way, way long ago. Like, it's one of the oldest stories told. It was first told orally in Egypt, and it was written down version in Italy. All periods of time, like the Brothers Grimm made an adaptation from the Charles Perrault version of the story. It's like one of the most well-known fables, I guess is maybe the right word, of all time. Like Dumbo, Cinderella was made after a large batch of box office bombs, specifically in Europe following World War II, as you mentioned, but that would kind of continue on. I think like Sleeping Beauty, actually maybe Sleeping Beauty's after, but a couple of the other movies, I think Bambi came out in the 1940s, like a few of those movies also didn't do super well. They were $4 million in debt. So they kind of wanted to go back to like their roots, Snow White, and that worked because Cinderella was the most commercial and critical hit since Snow White had released in 1937. So the movie had 3 Academy Award nominations for Best Sound, Best Music, for both the score and the song Bippity Boppity Boo. This movie actually launched the start of the Walt Disney Music Company, which is the company that produces their music and their soundtracks. It also was the first movie to use multi-track vocals. So during the song when she's cleaning, which is Sweet Nightingale. Sorry, I got there. Anyway, so they had a multi-track for her song. You know, I think there's three tracks at the same time. That was the first movie to do that. So this is the first movie that they released a multi-disc album for. It sold over 750,000 copies and was number 1 on the Billboard charts. Mom actually has this still downstairs. It's with our album collection. I'm sure we can post a picture of it. They also released a CD soundtrack of it in 1997, which also did really, really good numbers. And we also, I don't know if we still have it, but we did have the CD version of Cinderella. So you're welcome, Disney. Supporting you throughout 50 years plus. You're welcome. So in this version, though, one of the main criticisms is the characterization of Cinderella. A lot of people didn't like the way that she was portrayed in this movie. A lot of things that were heavily praised were the animation, the storytelling were really well done. So it has a 97% in Rotten Tomatoes. In the box office at the time, it made $4.28 million. It was the 5th highest grossing North American film of 1950. But however, in France, Cinderella is the 16th biggest film of all time. It sold 13.2 million copies. I think that probably has to do with the fact that the most well-known story originated in France. I'm sure that has something to do with it, so it's probably more popular in France, the story itself, than, you know, in the United States. It helped to reestablish the company and fund them to allow Walt Disney to create his theme parks, a bunch more movies, like this movie made bank. The lifetime gross of this movie is $93 million domestically, a lifetime, but it made $185 million worldwide. Adjusted for inflation, that is $565 million over its lifetime, which a lot of money. So it was the best-selling VHS of all time until E.T. came out. This movie led to 2 direct-to-DVD sequels. We're not going to cover those because we don't give a shit. So yeah, so Cinderella is commonly, just the story, not this movie, is commonly referred to as one of the most recognizable tales of all time. This movie, though, however, is routinely listed as one of the best animated movies of all time as well. Yeah, so like Dumbo, Cinderella was inducted into the Library of Congress for being, like, historically important. Whatever Hannah said earlier. Just copy that
Culturally
again. Important.
Significant or something.
But yeah, so that is my background. So Hannah has prepared a summary for us for this movie.
So this is love. Unless you're Cinderella, and your grand prize for the prince's foot fetish is your hand in marriage. After Cinderella's parents die, She is forced to become a servant for her stepmother and stepsisters. This all changes the night she goes to a ball and waltzes with Prince Charming. Unfortunately, he's not Chad Michael Murray, but rather is the world's most boring man who does the bare minimum and still gets the girl. Let's not forget about the Tom and Jerry subplot that leaves much to be desired.
I forgot the prince does not make an appearance into this movie until about 50 minutes in. Like, that is, like, 2/3 into the movie.
We're more than halfway through. We haven't even gone to the ball yet.
Yeah. Here's what I'll say. I think Cinderella as the story, like, it stands the test of time. It is a well-done fairy tale. The animation is gorgeous. Is it one of my favorite Disney movies? No. I haven't watched Cinderella in maybe 10, 15 years, but I can recognize that it is well done. Does it have problems? Yeah, the prince is, yeah, like you said, very boring. He doesn't even have a name. He just exists. And that's a bit weird. There also is a heavy emphasis on the animals, which to some people might be annoying. A lot of high-pitched squeaking going on. I think those segments can work. Gus is a cute little fat mouse. What's not to love?
I wrote a note about the mice. I said, why do the mice talk like Charlie writes and It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia?
It is a lot like that, yes. I mean, I understand why it's a very popular story. Like, it's the girl down on her luck. She's, working for a shitty family and gets to follow her dreams to become a princess. And it's fine. It's fine. I know some people can criticize Cinderella, like, damsel in distress, and, like, sure.
I wrote a note 8 minutes in, I hate this movie. It's so boring. I'm sorry, it's so boring. I was so incredibly bored. I was, like, spacing out. Like, okay, it picks up a little bit the second half, but the first half, I was like, I can't. I agree with what they said about how Cinderella was characterized.
Yeah.
In the animated movie. I think, to me, the subplot didn't really work with the animals. The prince literally, he doesn't even go to try and find her. He just sits in the castle and was like, find me the girl with the slipper.
Yeah, he's royalty, Hannah. He doesn't got time for that shit.
I don't give a shit. The man did not speak.
He also was wearing yellow.
No.
Well,
okay,
cream. But in that movie, it looks yellow. Like, they can...
That's white.
Okay, they can say it's cream, but on my
white.
laptop, what I was watching was yellow. And you know who agrees with me? All the people who voted yes on Instagram. Anyways.
Not me.
I mean, so it's fine. I think, here's the thing. I think in terms of, like, the fairy tale genre, like, I understand why it's popular. Like, visually, it was very appealing. I really liked the watercolor work, like, at the beginning and the end of the movie. A lot of the animation was super, super gorgeous. The sequences with water were all really, really well done. Do I think the Tom and Jerry aspect, like, holds up to modern times? Maybe not.
I don't have an issue with the animated aspect, because the animated aspect is what saves the movie for me. I have an issue with the plot. I don't think the plot worked, and I hate that the prince and Cinderella, like, there's no connection there. Like, I was watching the waltz scene in the ball, and I was like, I wish I could be watching the waltz scene from Enchanted with Patrick goddamn Dempsey and Amy Adams. Because that... Because, like, that's the emotion that I wanted. And I know it's animated, but you can do emotion in animated. We've seen it done. And I don't know, like, I had a problem with some of the lines. Like, there was a line where it's like, whoever the slipper belongs to, the prince will beg, request, or something for her hand in marriage. Yeah. And I was like, I guess it's from the 1950s, so that's just another time period.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I just, like, to me, this movie, there's nothing to me that I liked about this animated movie. Minus the animation. I just didn't care for it.
I mean, yeah, that's fine. but I can understand the importance of it. I mean, like, literally, the Cinderella castle is iconic. Cinderella as a character is an iconic-looking character. Like, the fairy godmother, like, the dress transformation, the pumpkin to a carrot, like, all these things are things, that's what they say, like, it's one of the most recognizable, like, tales of all time. It's just everybody knows this story. And it has to mean something.
The impact, too, that it had on future, like, movies, like Cinderella's story, there's, like, a million different adaptations of Cinderella.
We got the version with Brandy, and I think that it's a great version. Highly recommend.
So I can recognize its importance in Disney, in how much it did for the company.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Can we also bring up one of my favorite lines is they're making the dress for Cinderella because she's too busy doing chores. And the Jacques, who is the mouse in the red suit, he's like, I can help with the sewing. And this mouse goes, leave it to the women. And I was like, it's 1950. It's 1950, but I was like, so it's a different time. I'm like, okay, yeah.
Maybe that's why I don't like it.
Yeah, I mean, I think I'm able to look at it for the story it is when it came out. And while I don't think it's the most entertaining, the music is really great. Like,
it is.
The music is really, really well done. The animation is really well done. It's like, it is an iconic movie. So,
yeah. It is. I won't disagree with that.
Yeah. It's not a favorite, though.
No.
Yeah.
Favorite character? I had to go Cinderella.
Yeah.
Because in this movie, quite frankly, there's not many people to pick between.
Right. I liked, of the animals, I liked Jacques. I thought he was, he's a brave little mouse. He's like Despero.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We love a good mouse.
Yeah.
Favorite song, I went with Bippity Boppity Boo, just for the effort Fairy Godmother puts into that song.
She puts a lot of effort. They, like, I didn't write this down because I just had already had so much background written down, but they, like, hired outside of Disney to get songwriters to write this song. They had heard a song that they had liked that kind of sounded like this, and they were like, this is the sound we want for this song. So they, like, brought in outside songwriters for this, specifically that song. So I had a tie best song. I went with, I was telling Hannah about this. I went with Bippity Boppity Boo because I think it is a really iconic song, but I also think A Dream is a Wish Your Heart Makes is a really, really, like, I think it's one of the songs people think of when you think of Disney songs.
Mm-hmm.
However, I cannot take it seriously because I can only hear the Disney Channel version where all the Disney Channel stars sang this, and, like, that's all I can picture in my head is, like, the Sprouse twins, like, reading a line because they can't sing, and then just, like, Raven building out, a dream is a wish your heart makes, and it's, like, all sped up, and so anyway, that's all I can think about, though. But I thought both those songs are really good, really great songs from the movie.
Yeah. And they're both songs that are, like, still nowadays, like, popular.
Yeah.
Like when you look at, like, Disney song collections, those are always in there.
Right.
I did have a favorite line. It was the Fairy Godmother.
Okay.
She said, "Good heavens, child, you can't go out in that." And I was like, I love the Fairy Godmother.
I really liked, I can't remember which stepsister it was, but they were like, the prince is looking for an eligible bachelor or bachelorette to become his bride. And I don't remember what the one line the other one said first, but then the other one goes, "And I'm so eligible." It's like, oh my god. I'm like, that's funny. Do you have a favorite scene?
I was trying to think about that. I guess the scene where the Fairy Godmother is turning, like, the pumpkin into a carriage and all that. Like, I've always liked that scene. Yeah. But I don't have, like, necessarily a scene to me that's, like, a big standout scene.
The part where it's, like, the song So This Is Love is playing, and they're kind of, like, moving through this night garden, and there's a lot of really, really well-done water animation, and I just, like, really liked the animation specifically of that scene, so that's why I picked that.
Yeah.
All right. Ready?
Last movie.
All right, so now we move to live-action Cinderella. So this version was released in 2015. It's an hour and 46 minutes. This version was directed by Kenneth Branagh. I can never remember how to pronounce his last name. I'm so sorry. He plays Gilderoy Lockhart in Harry Potter. He also directs a ton of shit. I think he did Thor, a couple Thors. So production of this movie started in 2010 after the success of the live adaptation of Alice in Wonderland, which was also done by Tim Burton. Mm-hmm. So again,
I didn't even think about that.
Yeah. So originally someone named Mark Romarv was to direct, but left due to creative differences as Disney said his version was, quote, too dark. So one of the things that I think is really, really significant is how much money and work went into the costume design. Sandy Powell, who is the costume designer, is a 3-time Oscar winner for costume design. She wanted to draw inspiration from the animated original movie, but also let the costumes stand alone. They made 9 different versions of her iconic ball gown dress. It was made by 18 tailors, and every dress took 500 hours to complete. They made 9 versions and only one made it in the movie. The slipper, glass slipper, they couldn't make it out of glass, so it was made with Swarovski. I'm probably butchering this name, and I know how to say it, but it's the crystals, like the really iconic like crystals. They worked with Disney to create these shoes. 8 pairs of shoes were made. None of them were wearable, however. You couldn't wear these shoes. So essentially what they had to do is they had to superimpose these shoes onto her post-production. So she was not actually wearing like the glass slippers for the filming. The movie made $542 million worldwide. It was the 12th highest grossing movie of 2015. Received mostly positive reviews. Had an 84% in Rotten Tomatoes, 67 out of 100 on Metacritic, and a cinema score of A. It was nominated for Best Costume Design for an Academy Award. It did not win. And just another comment I thought was important because it was listed many times on the Wikipedia is that this movie is routinely ranked really high on live action ranking lists of like many different sources. And I thought that was weird that they had to include that in the Wikipedia. So I thought, okay, I guess it's relevant to our interest. So here it is. Now to my summary. The Game of Thrones and Mamma Mia crossover you knew you needed, Cinderella tells the age-old tale of a young girl becoming a slave orphan under the rule of her evil stepmother and stepsisters. Kit Harington Stark Madden gets real characterization and fencing and must find a bride. It's essentially the story you know and maybe love, except now there are lizard people.
The first note I wrote down.
It's probably the same first note I wrote down too.
Is that I associate this movie with Maisie's death in Olive Garden, and I have not watched it since.
I haven't either. So in 2015, our family dog Maisie died. Had to be put down. She had some regressive arthritis issues in her hips, and essentially her legs gave out. Our lovely, wonderful super fan and guest of this podcast, Audrey, took Hannah and I out to a lovely meal at Olive Garden, and we then went and watched Cinderella at the theaters. So, I've not seen it since, and it has a sad connotation to it, so I tried my best to distance myself from that memory and view it with fresh eyes 7 years later.
I will say I did really love the costume design.
Costume design was very well done. That was something I noticed as well. Like, I really liked a lot of the costume choices made. Like, why am I blanking on her name? I just want to say Catherine O'Hara, but that's not.
Let me pull it up.
What is her name? I don't know why I'm blanking on her name. Like, she's an iconic actress.
I meant to write her name down, too, because I was going to make a comment about her. Yeah. I was going to make a comment about her first dress she wore. Kate Blanchett.
That's okay. So, specifically Kate Blanchett's outfits were, like, top-notch. Loved it. I'm here for it.
I really like the cinematography they did in this film.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's Lily James.
I really like Lily James, too. And I also have a crush on Richard Madden, so.
Yes. I don't know if it's just the chemistry between the two of them, but I really like this movie.
I do, too. I think it's really well done.
And I remember when we saw it, I said, like, after seeing a couple live actions, I was like, Cinderella's, like, maybe one of the best adaptations.
I remember liking it when I saw it last, and I was like, well, I don't know, maybe if I liked it because I was like sad and mopey and, you know, like vulnerable to, you know, to maybe liking it more than it you know, thinking it's better than it was. But yeah, I agree. I think it did a really good job.
I think what it is that they do a good job of keeping enough elements the same.
Yeah.
But unlike, I guess similar to Dumbo, they made small changes to make it appropriate for 2015 that made me like the movie a lot more. I love the fact that they have Cinderella and Kit meet before the ball. I think just the chemistry between them is really good, and I think they make Cinderella a lot more, like, you feel a lot more for her in this movie, and I think Lily James just does, like, emotional breakdown scenes really well. But I just think it works well. I think the humor was actually really good. Like, I laughed a couple times, and I wasn't expecting that. I love, why am I blanking on her name? Helena Bonham Carter.
As the godmother.
As the fairy godmother. Yeah. I love her just in general, but I think her as the fairy godmother really works. Like, I just thought a lot of the elements in the movie really worked for me.
Yeah. I watched this movie with my roommate Esberry, and all of our, like, critiques, or at least most of the critiques that I had were of a more, like, not serious nature. Like, the fact that they have this giant fucking house, but they don't have more than 3 beds.
Yeah.
Because she, like, dusts off, like, a sofa bed in the attic. And I'm like, you don't have more than 2 bedrooms in your house? You don't have more than 3 beds? The fact that, my other favorite, the fact that this prince has a secret garden. And he's like, I've never shown this to anyone. You're telling me this prince is going out, maintaining this fucking garden, this pristine secret garden with a swing in the middle of it? We know he swings both ways.
Yes, we do.
Yeah, which we love. But there's no way this prince has time to go. Like, there's not a caretaker. There's not a garden taker. He was like, I've never shown this to anyone. And I'm like, that's a line. That's a lie. Also, the lizard people. We didn't need that. I did not need to see a lizard man with teeth. That's just my comment. I was terrified. I didn't like it. But I really think, this is what I meant when I said that I don't think Dumbo fixed problems the right way. Or they tried to, like, brush things aside. So I think, again, one of the biggest criticisms I had from the original was that the prince he doesn't have character. He's not a person. He just is there. Whereas this one, I feel like you get background. You get to meet him. His relationship with his father is really, really well done. I really liked their dynamic. The fact that they meet before the ball, I thought was a good addition because it adds a little bit more chemistry. That they've met before this, like, ball where he's trying to find a bride of, like, 1,000 women kind of deal. I also really liked the plot twist in the end when he rips off his goat and he's like, or his coat, and he's like, I'm here! Like, I've been with you the whole time and you didn't even notice.
Yeah. Because I literally wrote a note. I was about to write a note about how, like, Kit's being lazy, not even trying to find the girl. And then I was like, oh, just kidding. He's there. He's been here the whole time. And I forgot about that.
I had too.
I forgot about that from the original.
We both, like, over the top gasped. We were like, and I was like, I forgot about this. Also, I love the fact that they keep referring to her as this, like, simple country girl, yet she knows how to do waltzes and, like, really elaborate dances. And, like, I'm like, okay. So, like, my criticisms are, like, silly shit, like, stupid things.
Which that means that, like, when you have to pick out those things, it's like, at least your criticisms aren't, like, about the plot or, like, some big thing.
Right.
I think that the waltz scene in this movie was, like, a lot better.
I did, too. I was really engaged.
And I felt the chemistry. I was engaged the whole movie.
Yeah.
I just like the movie. I just think it's really good in a lot of ways.
Yeah, I think it works. I mean, there's some criticism of, like, Cinderella, like...
Well, yeah.
She's be kind and courageous, and it's like, I was like, they kind of ham-fisted it in there a little too much. Like, we understand. Like, you don't need to tell us 8,000 times.
Yeah, I appreciate, though, like, them trying to give more background to characters. Like, it was interesting because you almost got, like, more about the stepmother.
Yeah,
like,
right.
hearing her explain to Cinderella that, like, she married for love and had kids and then her husband died, and so the second time she married for her daughters. Like, you kind of get to, see, like, a little bit of her backstory, and you obviously get Kit with his father and Cinderella with her dad. Like, I appreciate that, and I just think, to me, it's... Well, we'll get into it, but...
The other thing I just wanted to mention is, you know, the scene in the original where they, like, tear her dress to shreds?
Yeah.
Like, rip the shit out of her dress. In this one, they just kind of rip her sleeve a little bit. And then she, like, runs off crying, and it's like, I can't go to the ball like this. And I'm like, it's just your sleeve. I'm like, just sew it back on. You got time. Yeah.
And then she was like, no, I just want you to fix it up. And she's like, oh, can we just make a couple changes? And then it's just a completely different dress. I was like, all right.
Also, the fact that carriage looked exactly like the Christmas ornament that we have. The golden Christmas ornament. Yeah. So I appreciated that, because I was like, I've seen that before.
Yeah. Last note I have is, goddamn those baby blue eyes on Carrot.
Oh, God. It's like, I was trying to explain why I think Richard Madden is attractive. And I'm like, I think it's the combination of his piercing eyes, his accent. He's very charismatic.
Yeah.
So I think it's a combination of all these things together. Just kind of work.
Yeah. God.
Yeah.
I was lost in those eyes a couple times. It's like, oh.
Beautiful man.
Beautiful man.
All right.
I actually liked that this time I had a harder time picking a favorite character. Yeah. Because there was actually multiple strong contenders, I thought. Mm-hmm. I really liked the fairy godmother.
Yeah.
But I ended up actually going with Kit.
I did too. I picked Kit as well, yeah.
And obviously it was like at the end it was between him and Cinderella.
Yeah.
Like, it was going to be one of the two of them. But I just think, like, getting Kit's backstory, and I think it's the fact that his character was so much improved from the animated movie.
Yeah. They did work. They put the work in where it mattered.
They put the work in, and it, like, clearly paid off. Like, I love that you got background on his father. I love that he just, like, he didn't want Cinderella to know who he was because he didn't want her to, like, view him differently. And, like, he just wanted to be known as, like, this common guy. Like, I just think, I don't know. I think a lot of aspects about him just really worked for me.
Yeah. I picked him for the very similar reasons. I thought giving him a background and characterization really, really worked. And I think they did a good job of, like, how to characterize him. Because, you know, he doesn't have a personality in the original. Like, I mean, of course you have the source material, but even then I don't think he's really a big character in the story. I really liked what they did with that. I liked his dynamic with his dad. I liked a lot of the choices they made for him. So I thought, like, that and the relationship between him and Cinderella, I think, works a lot better than it does in the animated. It feels a lot more genuine, and there's more of you can form more of a connection, like, to those characters because of that.
And I also think props to, like, the actor and actress for just, like, having good chemistry too. Because that first scene they met, I was like, oh yeah, they have a lot more chemistry.
It was a good old-fashioned It Takes Two scenario.
Yes.
Yep. An equestrian. Are you asking me an equestrian?
An equestrian. I still love that line. I thought... Let me see, because I think I had a line.
Okay, I can do my line if you want.
Yeah, if you have your line.
I specifically liked that the stepmom referred to Cinderella as a, quote, unaccompanied hussy.
That's what mine was, too. That was mine.
I was like, what? And I started laughing. I was like, that's good. I like that one. That's funny.
You know what? I do have to shout out the stepmom too, Kate Blanchett's character, because I actually think, like, she was, like, had some of the best lines.
She'd have some really
just
good
the way
lines.
She delivered. Her comedic, like, timing and all that was good.
It was really good. Yes. So I really liked the dance at the ball. I thought the choreography was really well done. I thought it was really interesting. Like, I was really invested, and I mean, I used to dance, so I like dance regardless, but I thought it was, like, a really well done, like, dance sequence.
So my favorite scene was actually the first time that they met, Cinderella and, Kit. I just, like, thought that there was something really charming about that scene. It was simple. I mean, besides the fact that they were, like, on horses and stuff like that.
Right.
But I just liked the interaction between the two of them, and it kind of, like, that scene made me, like, oh, I'm gonna actually enjoy this movie. Yeah. Like, because it was pretty early on. Yeah. And I was, like, invested.
I think within the first, like, after 30 minutes or so.
The thirst is
real.
real. The thirst is real.
The thirst is real.
Yes. But yeah, so I like that scene.
Yeah. So I thought the best song we were kind of limited on songs in this movie. They had a version of Bippity Boppity Boo and I think A Dream Is a Wish Your Heart Makes in the credits, but I don't really count those because those aren't in the movie. So I really liked the, I guess the best song is when she's singing in the tower when he, like, you know, she gets found with the, you know, the slipper. I don't remember what the name of that song was, but it's like, dun, 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 dun. Yeah, that one.
Yeah, I also picked that. I just like Lily James singing too. Mamma Mia too. Love her in that. But yeah, I picked the same one because, like you said, there wasn't really many choices.
Yeah.
To pick from.
Yeah. So in terms of best like recreation from the animated to the live action, I really liked the dress transformation sequence when she's given this dress, and also partially because I like this dress better than I like the big poofy ball gown, like updo headband look. And I think it just made it a bit more modern, and you could clearly tell how much work went into this dress. Costume designer Sandy Powell said that they wanted to make the dress look like water ripples, like flowing like water, which I think they succeeded in. It was a really well done dress, and I just really liked that, the transformation, like, you know, turning the things into other things, but specifically the dress bit.
Yeah, I went with the scene with the fairy godmother. I guess kind of with the dress too, but like I guess more so getting to see like the carriage and getting to see all of that in live action was pretty cool compared to the animated. And then also with the scene, the chase scene after where everything's starting to turn back into, like, the clock hit midnight, so everything's starting to turn back to how it was. Like, I really like those two comparison scenes.
Although I cannot stand for greenhouse slander. They destroyed a perfectly acceptable, lovely greenhouse, and I will not stand for it.
Yes. I think the live action is better.
I think if I am ignoring, like, the cultural significance of the original Cinderella, like, if I'm looking at it in terms of pure enjoyment, I like the live action better than the animated. I would agree. I think I was more invested and more engaged in it than the original.
Yeah.
I think those ranking lists were right when they usually have it pretty high up there.
I do too.
Yeah.
For each list, we're only going to have 2 movies.
To start, yeah. And we'll add on to our list as we go.
Right, it'll be like Pixar, how we add on. So let's do animated first.
Okay. You can go first.
No, you go first.
Okay. I don't think it's really surprising just based on the way I talked about Cinderella, but currently I have Cinderella above Dumbo. I just think if I'm looking at them collectively, there are a lot of things I like about Dumbo, but I just think Cinderella is a better done movie than Dumbo is.
I also put Cinderella above Dumbo, which is kind of surprising the way I was talking about Cinderella, but I took into consideration the impact Cinderella's had on Disney as a whole. Also the fact that, like, I think Dumbo's okay, it's simplistic, but it's also, like, one of those things where it's a little bit hard to watch.
Yeah.
And I think Cinderella, even though I don't personally, like, think it's that great of a movie, I think that the plot, like, I see why it works. And I think it's a little bit of a better movie overall.
And I have the same for live action, although I don't think that is any way a surprise. The live action Cinderella, I think, it accomplishes what Disney wants to do with this. It takes an animated property, turns into live action, improves on things that can be improved on, while still sticking true to the story. And I think that's what you want. Like, I don't want a shot-for-shot recreation of the movie. I don't need that. Why do I, like, what's the point of that? Having that means that you're just doing this for money. Like, you're not taking any creative liberties to make this better, which is why I'm not excited to watch live-action Lion King. Haven't seen it yet, but I'm pretty sure I'm not going to be thrilled, just based on what I've heard about the movie and I know about the movie.
Yeah.
So Cinderella, it does what Disney wanted to do. And Dumbo just was okay. So because of that, it's going to be second.
Yeah, I think Cinderella definitely, like, if I look at Cinderella and Dumbo compared, I think that Cinderella, the ambition was there, but they also hit the mark on the ambition, whereas Dumbo, the ambition was there, but they just missed the mark. So I think that's why. And I think Cinderella, like what you said, like, it definitely adds to the movie. It made me enjoy a movie that I didn't really enjoy that much. It made me be like, oh, well, maybe I actually do like this when it's, like, done this way. So, yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, so that is our first edition of this, episode 1. There'll be multiple parts. We're going to do this periodically, kind of similar to our TV pilots. We'll just kind of do it when we want to, you know. We've got quite a few movies to go through, so this will be an ongoing series. Also, more live action movies are going to be coming out, so we might visit them like this, or we might wait until 2 are out and do like another set of 4, or we might just do the 1. We haven't really formulated that yet. But yeah, so you can look forward to more of these. We have social media. We have an email. You can let us know what you thought. Or if you have any suggestions, if there's a way we could do this better or, you know, different. We'd love to hear it, because we just kind of were like, this seems the most sense. Yeah. R3podcasts@gmail.com, R3podcasts on social media.
Yeah. Next week, we're going green.
Yeah. But in a way we don't know yet.
We haven't decided yet.
We haven't formulated this idea fully, so we'll get back to you.
We're gonna talk about it after.
We're gonna talk about it, yeah. We'll figure it out. Bye.
We would like to thank Joseph McDade for our intro music. He provides free music available for all kinds of creative use. The song that we used is called Sunrise Expedition, and you can find it and his other music on his website, josephmcdade.com. If you would like to reach us, you can email us at r3podcasts@gmail.com. That's R, the number 3, podcasts@gmail.com. Or you can find us on Instagram by searching Research Rank Repeat.